Sorry about the delay there for a minute. I was trying to get my bio all fixed out before I came out here. First of all, I would like to thank everyone in the audience that came this evening for our first TED event here at Effat University. Second of all, I would like to thank all of the student government here in Effat for organizing this. It's a very exciting thing for me personally. I'm an avid TED watcher on the internet, so when they asked me to speak at this, I was really excited to see this come. So first of all, can we give a big hand to the student government here at Effat for organizing this? Thank you. When I was asked to do this speech about a month or two ago, it was last semester, and I was really excited because, like I said, I'm actually a very big TED fan. And so as I was thinking, I came across all these different ideas of what I could talk about. But I was thinking, the theme of this event is Aspire to Achieve, and it's mostly meant for youth. And so I wanted something that was going to speak to the heart of the young of Saudi Arabia that are living here in Jeddah. And so I was really quite at a loss. And basically I would sit home on the weekends and think, what am I going to do? What am I going to do for this TEDx event? And so basically what I finally did is I actually opened it up on my Facebook account. For any of in the audience that know me, you all know that I'm a big Facebook user. And so what I did is I actually asked my Effat students that I've taught through the years, as well as different people that know me, what do you think would be meaningful in the way that you know me to talk about at this event? And so I actually got about 65, 70 responses as to different things that I should talk about. So I was still kind of a little lost, because some of the different ideas they were giving me was, first of all, talking about my migration from the United States to here to Saudi that I made 8 years ago with my husband, Hatem. Some of them said, yes, I should talk about my different career paths, because I started out actually as a director with Walmart in America. I then went on back to grad school and became a mental health therapist with adolescents. And then when I moved here to Saudi with my husband, I actually came to Effat and been teaching in the psychology department as a faculty. Thank you. I see we have some psychology people in here. That's good. Some people suggested that I talk about being a wife and a mother and trying to balance my career during all of this, which that's definitely a task. And some suggested we're having technical difficulties. Hold on. The point here, okay, thank you. Some suggested that I speak about psychology, since that's my field of interest and my passion. Others suggested that I talk about ethics, and for those of you guys that are my students, you're like thinking, she couldn't go one speech without talking about ethics. But to me, ethics are very important, not only to the individual, but also our society and how it affects us collectively. So I had all these ideas, and still I'm sitting at my couch on Thursdays and Fridays, sitting there thinking, what am I going to do for this event? What am I going to say that can really talk to the hearts of the youth here in Jeddah? And finally, as I thought about these different areas, it finally came to me that all of these different areas of my life took the lessons that basically I learned when I was learning to ride a bike between the age of 4 and 5. The different components of the bike mirror different parts of the human and what it takes to be able to go forward. And so what I did is I actually called my father in America, and I was like, Dad, I think you still have my bicycle. And this is actually a picture of my bicycle, my first bicycle that I got for my 4th birthday. I said, Dad, can you please take it out of storage? And I need you to take a picture of it and send it to me. And so, guys, you can see the little mini bike. When I first got it, it was actually bright red. The seats were not torn, and it was not quite so dirty. But you have to understand, this bicycle is about 36, 37 years old. So it's had a lot of wear and tear on it through the years. And I can still to this day remember when I was like between the age of 4 and 5, my dad told me, Kim, it's time we're taking the training wheels off, okay? Because at one point, this bicycle actually had 2 little wheels on the back wheels so that when I rode it, it kept me up and on balance. But the day come when Dad was like, no, you're a big girl now. You got to learn to do this without it, okay? And it actually took me a whole day learning to try to balance, to steer, and to get my feet working to make myself go forward. And in that day, I actually took a lot of spills. I had many cuts and bruises by the end of the day. But I remember that when I finally got it and I was able to go down the sidewalk of our front yard, it was like the best feeling. And guys, how many of you guys have actually ridden a bike in here? Let me hear applause. Let me applaud. Okay. So a lot of the audience has had this experience. For any of you guys that have not, or for any of you guys that have never really maybe thought about what it takes to ride a bike and how the mechanisms are moving, let me briefly go through and show you 5 of the main aspects of a bike. And first of all, guys, you can see here the tires. And if you can see the little red laser light, these are the tires. And you have a back tire and a front tire. Another pivotal part of the bike are the rims. And the rims are actually the metal framing underneath the tires. And then on this part, we have our chain wheel and our chain. And guys, what happens is we actually pedal our feet, moving our feet and our knees and our legs to move the pedal, which moves this chain around the chain wheel, which is connected to the back tire. And that's what makes the back tire move, which actually moves the front tire. The fourth part we have are the handlebars, and this is the part that we use to steer and guide the bike. And I can actually remember as a kid, and even as I got older, trying to be a little bit of a show-off, throwing my hands up in the air, and usually that ended up crashing somewhere. And guys, the fifth important part is what we call the kickstand. Here on the bottom, you can see it. And guys, the kickstand we don't use all that often, but when we need to rest or stop or get off, we put the kickstand down so it keeps the bike right up. Now, I'm sure you guys are asking, but how does this relate to the human experience? What I'm going to do now, I'm going to go through and take those different parts and actually make it similar to different parts of the human experience. Guys, when we look at the tires again, we have the back and we have the front tire. If you think of the back tire represents our ethics, values, and morals, while the front tire represents our behaviors. Now let me ask you, and I'm going to test you here a little bit, the teacher part of me coming out. Which part did we say moves the other tire? The back, okay? So if you think about that, our ethics, our morals, and our values are moving our front tire, which I said was the what? Behavior, good. I hear lots of women voices, but no men's voices over here. Okay, guys, the next part, we remember we talked about, was the rims. Guys, the rims is our sense of self. And when we talk about sense of self, this is basically just talking about how do we see ourselves? Who are we? And I think this is an experience that all of us have went through in questioning and trying to figure out what we want, who we are, and what's important to us. And so if you think about this, the tires, our behaviors, ethics, and values, have to actually ride on the rim, or us. Guys, in addition, when we go back down to the chain and the chain wheel, I look at this as our communication system. And if you think about communication actually happens in 2 different ways that are very important. First of all, we have to be able to communicate with ourselves. The communication involves not only communicating what's in our heart to our head, but also communicating to the outside about what's important to us and how we can help others and how they can help us. And if the communication system's not working, we got a big problem, actually. Guys, the fourth part is the handlebars. And again, remember, the handlebar is our guidance system. And when you think of a guidance system, what do you think for us that might represent? Think. Goals. I heard it somewhere. Thank you. Someone saved me there. Okay. Yes, guys, our guidance system or the handlebars is basically our direction we have in life. Where do we see ourselves going and where do we want to be? And the fifth part is our kickstand. And guys, this is our support system. And let me ask you, what is your support system? Family, I heard it. What else? Friends, colleagues. Say it again. Bricks, okay? Yes, guys, our support system are basically the people around us, okay, that help us when we need it and that they are to lean on when we need them. And guys, but still you may be saying, okay, this is great. She's got this all about, she's equivalated these different parts of the bikes to different parts of the human experience. And if it's not clear to you all, I can still make it a little bit clearer with 5 different principles about riding a bicycle and learning to ride a bicycle. The first principle is basically about keeping the bike in working order. Okay, let me ask you if you've ever had this experience, because this always seemed to happen to me. How many of you guys as a kid went outside to ride your bike and there was something on the bike broken? Did anyone ever have that happen? Yes, okay. Growing up as a kid in the southern part of the United States, trust me, being outside was a big part of it. And your bike was like number 1 as far as entertainment, okay? So if I would ever go outside and my bike, and it always seemed to be that my tires had no air in them, it ruined my whole day, and especially if my father was out of town not to fix it for me, okay? So guys, we have to really look at our bike and the parts of us that we're using as our system to go forward. And we have to see, are they in working order? And not only at the beginning of the ride, but also during the ride. Sometimes we have to stop and check. Do we need to have maintenance done? The second principle is we need to know when to use our kickstand. What did I say the kickstand's for? It's a support system, okay? Now, guys, on not even a bike, but if we put too much pressure on anything, what happens? It breaks, okay? If we put too much pressure and we're relying too much on our support system, eventually that support system will break. And I want you guys to try something the next time you're riding a bike. What happens if you try to ride forward with your kickstand down? It can break, okay? Or another thing, you don't actually go far. You may go a little bit, but it's actually unstabilizing for you. And so you're either going to end up stopping or you're going to end up falling. So guys, the thing is, when we're going forward, sometimes we have to kick our kickstand up and move forward and learn to balance ourselves. Now, I want to step back for a minute. I didn't say break the brake stand off or get rid of it. No, we have to put it up and learn to rely on ourselves, because we can't move forward if we're always depending on other people. We have to learn to depend on ourselves. The principle number 3 has to do with our rims and our tires and how they fit each other, and we must have the proper inflation. And when you look at this first picture, this is actually a picture of a rim that is bent. Now, guys, just looking at that, do you think it's possible to ever move forward on a rim like this? No, okay? Guys, you're not going to be able to move forward. And what did we say the rim is? Self. That's us, how we view ourselves and what's important to us and the things that we need, and how we view ourselves of what's important to us. And guys, if we don't have an understanding of ourselves, it's very hard to even start a journey. This second picture I have actually is a flat tire. And guys, I can tell you from a personal perspective, there's been times when I've had flat tires actually on my bike and then also on a personal basis. A flat tire is basically when your tire is not inflated with enough air, okay? And yes, you can move forward, but what happens if you ride on a bike or even in a car on a tire that's flat? What happens to the rim? It breaks or it gets bent, okay? It's not the round shape that we need, and then when we have the tire inflated for it to move properly, it starts to bend, okay? And also, when you're on a flat tire and you're biking actually, you're gonna notice that you're exerting a lot of energy with your pedaling, but you're not moving nearly as fast as you would if your tire was properly inflated. The third picture is of a tire that has actually had a blowout, okay? It was an overinflated tire. Now, guys, I can honestly say about myself, when I think about overinflated tires on a personal level, There have been times when my behaviors have been overinflated. There have been times when my ethics, values, and morals have had perhaps been a little overinflated. But when you think about when you're riding a bike, or even, again, in a car, if your tires are overinflated, what happens when you hit a big bump in the road? It blows out, right? And you can see that's what's happened to this tire. It's actually going to blow out. And when you think about behaviors or morals and values and ethics that are bigger than life or overinflated, a lot of times what happens when people are experiencing this, the first time they hit that bump in the road, they have a blowout and it doesn't last. Okay? Guys, all in all, when you think about rims and tires, or ourselves and our ethics and morals and values, they're very much related. If the tires or our behaviors and values and ethics aren't properly inflated, after time it can actually bend the rim, or it can bend ourselves. And in addition, if the self is not round and fully developed, then actually the tires will never fit on that individual. So it's very much a relationship between all these components. Guys, principle number 4 is the channel of communication. And guys, I have 3 different pictures here. And when you think about a chain, if you've ever been on a bike and your chain is not properly fit and it's loose, you can move a little. But again, you're expending a lot of energy, but because the chain is not tight, you're not moving at the pace you should. And that's just like loose communication. When communication is too loose, either about yourself or to the external world, and too much is being shared, it may actually hinder your movement forward. On the other hand, if you have a chain that's too tight on your bike, which you'll notice it's very hard to pedal, you're pedaling with your feet and things are just barely moving. Now guys, in either one of these situations, either the loose chain or the too tight chain, what can happen ultimately is the chain becomes broken. And I can tell you guys throughout my different life experiences, once communication processes have broken down, either within or externally, that's it. Everything stops. Without the communication, nothing else is going to work. Because if you don't communicate with the outer world and you're not keeping an inner dialogue of communication with yourself, you're going to lose where you're going. Which brings us to number 4, the handlebars. Okay? Now, to be honest with you, how many of you guys as a kid maybe, you let go of the steering wheel? Let me hear claps. I hear hands. Let me see. Okay, good. What happened? You fell down? Okay. Guys, one of 2 things usually happens. When you let go of handlebars, generally what happens, the steering wheel will either turn this way or that way. Okay? And so if you pedal, sometimes you'll just pedal round and round, and you're not really going anywhere. You're moving, but you're not moving forward. You're staying in the same little circle. Okay? Or the other thing that can happen, and this seemed to happen to me more often than not, is you're going to end up crashing into something because you have no guidance system to guide where you're going. Guys, the 5th message I want to talk to you about is a little bit off these other principles, and that has to do with stationary bikes. How many of you guys in here have ever went to the gym or maybe in your house and you have a stationary bike or an exercise bike? Claps. Let me hear claps instead of hands. Okay. Most of us in here. Guys, do you move forward when you're on a stationary bike? No. Okay, we're basically sitting there and we're paddling away and, the sweat's dripping off us and we're thinking, yeah, I'm burning all these calories. I'm going to be so thin by tomorrow morning, okay? But we're not going anywhere. Guys, if you look at a stationary bicycle, there's on typical models, what's happening is actually there's posts or there's stands that are actually keeping the wheels from touching the ground. So you're not moving, and that's what's keeping you from moving. You can adjust the tension and even make it like you're riding up hills, but still, your wheels are never on the ground, okay? Guys, when I think about these stands and what's keeping us in place, I think we have to sometimes ask ourselves, what are the things that are keeping us in place and from moving forward? I know for myself personally, the fear of failure as well as the fear of upsetting others around me has always been probably my 2 biggest pillars that keep me in place. So what I want you guys to do is to consider what are the things that are keeping you in place. Get off those pillars, put your wheels down on the ground, start pedaling, and go towards your future, handling it, keeping your bike in maintenance and all the parts working to get where you want. and enjoy the journey along the way. And also remember, it's okay sometimes to change the journey. The destination's not so important. It's more so the process you go through it to get there. Thank you.